Welcome to A Guide to Every Deck in EDH. Today we're looking at Phelia Exuberant Shepherd. This is a 2-mana white commander, a 2/2 flash dog with whenever it attacks, exile up to one other target non-land permanent. Now note that that can include your opponent's permanents as well, but we're mostly going to be using it on ours. At the beginning of the next end step, return that card to the battlefield under its owner's control. If it entered under your control, put a +1/+1 counter on Phelia. So obviously, this blink stuff, we're going to be looking to do two things. We're going to be looking for as many cards as possible that have ETB or leave triggers to get value off of Phelia, or other specific things that combo with Phelia's ability. And we're going to make it so that Phelia doesn't die in combat, because it is only a 2/2 and it does have to attack in order to trigger. So with that said, let's go through the cards. We've got Reverent Hoplite as a way to put a whole bunch of tokens into play that we can keep repeating. We've got Eerie Interlude as another blink effect for copying our things, just like how Phelia does it. And we've got some little cantrip creatures here. Helpful Hunter, Spirited Companion, Wall of Omens notably missing. We don't need a million of these cards, just these are fine. Card draw, obviously we're having creatures leave and then re-enter the battlefield, so Enduring Innocence, Welcoming Vampire, Mentor the Meek, these cards are all good. Wall of Mourning, which many of you may not be familiar with, is a 2-mana 0/4 that says when it enters, exile a card from the top of your library face down for each opponent you have. And then Coven at the beginning of your end step. If you control 3 or more creatures with different powers, put a card exiled with Wall of Mourning into its owner's hand. So it's kind of similar to a Wall of Omens or a Spirited Companion or a Helpful Hunter. Obviously, we get access to more cards, but we don't necessarily get them immediately. We have to get the trigger for this. And if we blink it, we also don't get the next card immediately. Stoneforge Mystic, get some more equipment, and we are going to have to play enough equipment for Stoneforge that we can reasonably tutor out multiple different equipment, and when we blink this. Then we've got our combo stuff. So the main combos here is basically Abdel Adrian plus Felidar Guardian. So if we have both of these creatures, they can blink each other and keep re-blinking each other over and over and over. So with just these two, Abdel Adrian will wind up making infinite soldiers. And then if we have anything else that we're blinking as a result of this, we will get all of those triggers as well. We also have Panharmonicon for more triggers, Roaming Throne for more triggers. Specifically, we can name Dog with the creature type, and then Phelia will blink 2 things per go around. Delny, also we have like a lot of low power creatures that we can double the triggers on. And then finally, Sundial of the Infinite is here because if we blink an opponent's permanent, we can, with the return to the battlefield trigger on the stack, activate the Sundial to end our turn and therefore leave their thing permanently stranded in exile. We've got straightforward lands, mostly plains, with a few other cards in here, like Nykthos. Got some protection to make sure that Phelia doesn't get killed, our moms and whatnot. Bunch of ramp spells, so Phelia, while it is only 2 mana, a lot of our other cards are more expensive and we therefore want more for them. And I'll talk about why we want creature-based ramp instead of non-creature-based ramp in a bit. Also have Sword of Feast and Famine, another way of potentially getting Phelia through blockers. Bunch of removal, including creatures and in some cases non-creatures that have ETB triggers. And then we're in mono white. The taxing, the staxing is here. So rule of laws, can't search, can't cast your commander, your ETB triggers are shut off, can't activate your opposing creatures. Tax Collector is a tax effect that triggers on ETB and then goes away in a turn cycle, but we can keep getting it if we keep blinking this with Phelia. And there's stuff like Winter Moon, because we mostly have plains, but also Winter Orb. Again, our plan mostly revolves around beating down a whole bunch and winning by staxing out our opponents and eventually accruing value or just straight up beating them down. And therefore, we need a bunch of the stacks cards to mitigate our opponents drawing a bunch, ramping a bunch, etc. And for things like Thalia, Vryn Wingmare, and Glow Rider that tax non-creature spells, that's why a bunch of our ramp is oriented towards being creatures instead, so they don't get these taxes levied against them. Then we've got some tutoring with the Stoneforge, and then some other cards that I didn't exactly tag in anything. So Preston the Vanisher, whenever another non-token enters the battlefield under control, if it wasn't cast, you create a copy of it that is an 0/1, which obviously our Phelia and other blink effects cause our creatures to enter without being cast, so we can get copies of them. Another round is just another blink effect, and then Teleportation Circle, another blink effect. I also considered a number of other cards, obviously Wall of Omens, as I mentioned earlier. Reconnaissance would be a way to attack with Phelia without it getting killed. Ultimately decided not to play this. War Priest of Thune to blow up enchantments when it enters, and it's not just War Priest, there's a few other creatures that do similar things. Ultimately decided that the creatures we already had were good enough. Ghostway as another way of blinking out all of our stuff, and Cathar's Crusade here to be a beatdown card, which I ultimately rejected because we're playing a bunch of different taxing effects, so it might be a little hard to cast this, but these are potential add-ins that I would work on and see maybe if you would like these or not. And especially if your local play group does not like the taxing effects, you could cut some of the ones that are more, let's say, casual, unfriendly, like the taxes or the mana denial from the winter cards, like you can cut those and maybe swap some of these considerations in. But anyways, with all that said, that is going to do it for Phelia Exuberant Shepherd in EDH.